had not contemplated making this my first video, but after having read 243 pages of Q-Anon, and after having watched hours and hours and hours of others presenting their input and influence and their reflections and perspective, I felt that there was a piece missing, or at least parts of a piece missing, that needed to be addressed to a greater extent. So, thus my posting. There are two parts to this which answer the question, I hope, which says, why watch this video? The first of it is the base of the QAnon exposure, which has many, many, many pieces, as well as many of us have about all kinds of things that are going on in this country and throughout the world. But there's a piece, I think, that is most critical to the process, and I will attempt to describe that. And the second part of it is, which I think goes to the very core of the process, and which has not been addressed by QAnon, but also has not been addressed by many of the people who are wonderfully active, provocative, engaged parties trying to see if we can make a change in the way that this world and this nation especially is going. So I will attempt to respond to some of that in like kind. All right, so first of all, what is the source? What is at the source of this? And QAnon talks about a variety of things, certainly talks about a whole bunch of great things which have to do with what's going on right now, what kinds of things are being taken down, what kinds of actions are going on by the government, what kind of stuff is going on in the background. And in that mix are all kinds of things which have to do with government exposure, with subversive activities, with parts of the government which are not working, which effectively amount to false flags, and to the takedown of this country away from any form of constitutional residue of our constitutional form of republic. As a part of that, QAnon describes what I consider to be the core of the issue, which is, what's the source of the power? What's the source of the interest? Where is the negativity? Where is the dark side? What is the source of that? And QAnon says that the three pieces of it are the Saudis, the Rothschilds, and Soros. And he describes them all as trillionaires, and then also goes on, he, she, it, whatever AI, whatever QAnon happens to be, a committee, a posse, whatever it is. But QAnon describes the process as the Saudis having taken down the first leg, and that U.S. is next, and then on to Europe and Asia. But, first of all, while I don't question QAnon's source or authenticity or its relative accuracy, it seems to me that the Rothschilds are much more. That is, the Rothschilds, and I use that in the banker sense of the term. It isn't just the family, but it is the cabal that involves and engages the international banking process, and the people that are in and around and at the center of that international banking process. So as a short form analysis, let me call it the Rothschilds. Let me also say that I don't know whether it's just the family, whether J.P. Morgan, the Rockefellers, or 50 other people are at the core of it, nor do I know exactly all of the people who are in the second tier or the third tier of the process. But obviously there is a core, and obviously there is a process, and obviously there are financial and monetary folks and organizations at the very center of this which have taken down most of the world, including the United States. So let me give you a couple quotes which I consider to be fabulously interesting. You've got Nathan Rothschild, who was the third born of the founder of the Rothschilds, and he was there in the early 1800s, late 1700s, early 1800s in England, the third child who was sent to England to set the banking system up, and became eventually the core of the Bank of England. And the quote about him is that, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply, Nathan Rothschild. Now, what is at the core of that statement, whether it is absolutely true, and there's some question as to whether it is or whether it isn't, in principle, the principle of the comment is still accurate. And the principle of the comment is that that comment was made allegedly in the early 1800s, prior even to our war in 1812, which was manufactured, as others have said, by the banking interests that went after us because we dismantled the privately held central banking system that had been set up in 1789, and that it had run its course and was now out of control, and therefore allegedly the Rothschilds said, hey, look, if you don't go back with the central bank and let us run it, we'll have George III see if he can take the colonies back over again. The second quote comes from his mother, who is Guttel, I guess, Schnapper Rothschild. And her comment is, if my sons did not want wars, there would be none. Of the of her 5 children, Amschel stayed in Frankfurt, Solomon moved to Vienna, Nathan, as we've discussed, went to London, Karl or Kallmann went to Naples, and Jacob went to Paris, and they were all vastly successful bankers. So how has this manifest? What does their influence mean? Their influence means, and this is just one page, I hope you can see it, but it is one page of 8 of the 165 countries who have central banks that are all owned or operated or maintained or primarily controlled by this cabal, which I am for short form using as the Rothschild. So we have places like Austria, Azerbaijan, Bangladesh, Barbados, Belarus, Costa Rica, Croatia, Cyprus, Burundi, El Salvador, Gabon, Georgia, Germany, of course, Guinea, Korea, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Macedonia, Madagascar, Moldova, Mongolia, Portugal, Qatar, Rwanda, and you say, well, gee, how's that possible? Well, it's possible because of the final 3, or the final 5 that I will tell you about. The first one is that this banking consortium has control over the Federal Reserve. Who owns the Federal Reserve? Well, because it's never been audited, we don't know precisely. Because it is a privately held organization, we only know that there are approximately 5 families that have basically all of it. And as an outpost, as an outpouring of that control, is the Bretton Woods Accord in 1944, which makes the dollar the core transferring exchange medium throughout the world. So if you control the Federal Reserve to some extent through Bretton Woods, you control the world. Secondly, there's the Bank of England, not coincidentally, which is a huge part. Third, there's the European Union banking system, which controls and oversees the entire financial aspect of the euro, which is throughout all of Western Europe. Fourthly, there's the World Bank, and fifthly, the International Monetary Fund. And there are idiots on the internet who say, well, the World Bank is controlled by member nations, and the nations all contribute, and it's all part of the process, and it goes through the United Nations, and therefore, obviously, it is balderdash that this family cabal controls this. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at the heart of it, the member participants in the World Bank and in the International Monetary Fund are all of the national banks, which go back to here, which is the private financial control of 165 nations and all of the major parts of this. So Why do all of these little countries participate? Well, they participate because they get no money from the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. They have no right to exchange. They have no right to work through Bretton Woods unless they participate, unless they succumb to the control of it. And through blackmail and espionage and game playing and financial control, basically all of those countries have said, well, all right, if we have to, we'll do it. But far greater than that, and people see this banking thing as well as just the guy down the street that hands me money and that takes my savings. Well, that's not true. Since the Glass-Steagall Act was dissolved in 1999 with Clinton, all of these banks have been able to gain access into mutual funds, retirement plans, and various stocks and bonds throughout the process at Wall Street and throughout the other major stock exchanges. So how did this all consolidate? Well, beyond that, in 2008 we had the big crash, right? And one of the things I've asked myself many times is was there a crash in 2008 that had nothing to do, it had something to do with the overblown, say, lending of mortgages, and you can ask why that happened, but it also had to do with the banks basically pulling their own drain plug. And when they pulled their own drain plug, Mr. Paulson, the Secretary of the Treasury, came in and said, gosh, we have a fix for this self-destruction of the plug. Why don't we just give them $700 billion? And I have this 2 or 3 page thing that Congress can sign, and we can do that, which effectively is what happened, even though the 2 or 3 page thing was not enacted by Congress. But there were no controls, there was no oversight, there was no auditing, there was no maintenance to that $700 billion, and subsequent to that there have been trillions that have been advanced to the banks. And the result of it is that the 5 major banks that had a lot of control now have 3 times more control and have consolidated basically all the banks in the country. Not only that, with derivatives and other cross-related relationships, they have made themselves 5 or 10 times more, or 100 or 1,000 times more problematic as something which cannot be allowed to fail. And if they fail, of course, they can bring everybody down with them. So it's basically a red switch that turns everything off. But not only that, the bankers now have something like $1.7 trillion of excess lending from the Fed Reserve, which is not being circulated as loans and as part of the banking system, but has allowed them to consolidate and purchase much of Wall Street and the consolidation, and has facilitated the consolidation of aviation, the military-industrial complex, the entire food, seed, and agricultural industry, big pharmacy, big oil, and of course entertainment and the mainstream media. And all of those are consolidated, all of those are under tighter control, all of those are on strings which attach to the financial part of our country and which fund and flow 80% of the profits of the United States directly into Wall Street and from there into the bankers and to the rest of it. So what I have to say about this, and this is why it's so critical for me to be a part not for me, but for my comment to be a part of the process and for my input to be a part of the process as I see it, is that many people see the snakes, that is the little guys. And while Hillary Clinton is a huge little guy, she is still a snake. Bill Clinton, the Bush cabal, Macron and the rest of the folks in Europe, they are big folks. They're big players, but they're only snakes. And I'm not so sure that I don't see Soros as a snake as opposed to the dragon. So let me say why I see this the way I do. The dragon is the deep state. The bottom of the deep state is who controls and who draws and who pulls the strings and who maintains the control. And that dragon sends the snakes out to do its work. And that happens all over the world. The real big dragon is smog. And let me use that as smog. And it is 1, 2, 3, 5, or 100 players who sit on the gold. The difference between this process, the real process, and Smog is that Smog had his own gold. These folks want it all, and they don't want just the gold. They want everything that is emblematic of the gold, which is control over everything in the world. And what that means is that they gain that control through global control, which goes through the United Nations and everything else, all of this New World Order and globalization, through AI, artificial intelligence, through eugenics, and through perfect information of the rest of us. So we must hunt the snakes, but we must slay the dragon. And the dragon, the tendency throughout the globe, and certainly within the United States, is we find a snake, we chop its head, and we say, there, look, I've fixed the problem. The problem is that there are thousands or 10,000s of snakes, and there are only a few dragons. And if we don't get the dragons, there will be more snakes, many more snakes. One snake is as good as another to the dragon. So there are more and more what to do about it. That's the second part of the process. The first part is to see this through until the dragons are taken out, till the dragons are slain. And I don't mean that we round people up and guillotine them, but that they are all neutralized and zeroed out. And how do we do that? Well, we know that they have committed treason, they have committed blackmail, they have committed assassination, and they have committed genocide. And that genocide has served their purposes. And once we prove that, they will all come down. And all of that Babylonian fiat money system will come to a crashing halt, as it should. So what do we do about it? Everybody that talks about this, all the way from Alex Jones and Jerome Corsi, Paul Joseph Watson, Mike Cernovich and others, Stefan Molyneux, Jordan Sather, David Seaman, Dustin Nemos, and others from whom I am getting immediate information, have said, gee, we need to watch this, we need to do something, we need to follow through. The problem that I see with all of the internet is that everybody says we need to fix this, we need to follow through, but we cannot count on QAnon and whoever is attached to QAnon to do this without us. And what is going to happen if we don't activate, as I see it, is that the problem reaction solution will come forward, that these dark forces will pull a problem. And that problem could be any one of a number of things. They could panic the money and banking system. They could create a military incursion, war, or response from North Korea or elsewhere. They could do an oil, electric, or internet stoppage or food stoppage. They could create environmental or weather problems. They could do an attempted takeover of the government. They could do, as I may have mentioned, the money or banking process, and any one of those will cause us all to panic. And the normal reaction, which they have always gotten from us, is we say, gee, please fix this. Whatever you do, we can't stand to be without food or energy or internet or whatever it is. And so they say, all right, well, the price of that is we'll take some more freedom away, we'll take some more control away, we'll internationally and digitize the monetary system. You will succumb to us to a greater extent, and you'll give us greater control over all of you. And we all say, well, gee, that's the solution. Let's go ahead. Well, the answer is no. That's what we've always done. So all of this clamor to expose the dark side ends up coming up to nothing. And it is all of us, me included, watching these things, saying to ourselves, gosh, something has to be done, and I'm a warrior. I'm one of the people that's against all of this. I'm going to sit here and watch the next internet, the next YouTube, the next barrage of stuff that is a response to it, which is all passive and verbal, and we have not done anything. So the response to it is we can either surrender and allow fear and our need for security to dictate, or we can have an action plan and respond. And what I would say to that is, if you'll give me a second, What I would say to it is, and my proposal is, that we form some kind of broad brush organization, much as we did in the continental United States, when we said we were not going to be there, we were not going to be one of the colonies anymore, or the 13 colonies anymore. There are people who have said that there were 3% of the population that were patriots that took over when George Washington and the folks declared our independence, and of the 2.5 million people that were there. And that has been compared by using the 80,000 troops or so which were active at any given time and coming up with an approximate 3%. The truth of the matter is, I understand that there were probably closer to 3 times that many who engaged in the defense of the country and who were patriots and volunteers, that there were citizen soldiers that volunteered in addition, and probably a third of the population backed these guys at one point or another. But the bottom line is that if there were 3% of us who said we will not succumb, we will not surrender, we will not cave in to fear, we will stand up and we are organized and we are going to face this on, and we're going to let anybody else know, including this current government, that we will not stand idly by and allow nothing to be done. So 3% of us would be 3% of 327 million people, and guess what? That comes up to about 10 million people. So my suggestion is, and I am open to any input from anybody on this, my suggestion is that we begin to call ourselves the 10 million, and that we allow nobody to get in our way, that we expand this as much as we can, we open it up to other parties, we proudly announce that we are part of the 10 million, and we let the coalescence come around us. And what that also means is, first of all, we know we exist. We will speak with one voice. To some extent, we will all say, hey, look, we're not going to allow this to continue. We will prepare if the, quote, problem arises, and our reaction will not be to surrender. And we will let them know, we will let whoever sees us as mere sheeple, we will let them know that we will not allow ourselves to surrender, that the reaction will not be, oh gee, can you fix it for us? The reaction will be, oh no, BS, we will not do this. We will not allow you to come up with the solution for us. That we will not be taken quietly. We will not allow ourselves to be quietly shuffled off to FEMA camps or anywhere else, or to have some kind of new solution, or a Hank Paulson come out with some kind of a curative for us, which just puts us further in debt and makes us more despondent and responsive to the dark side of the system. We will be prepared to inform and organize the rest of the populace. That is, we will be ambassadors for all of the rest that needs to go on, and that we will establish communication links to see that in the event the internet goes down or any other problems exist, that we are capable of making sure that our reaction and the reaction of this nation is not to surrender under any circumstance. Please give me some kind of response if you concur. Please feel free to pass this around, to spread the concept if you agree with it, or if you have a different idea. I'm more than open to it. Let me be really clear about it as it relates to me, which is the little part, okay? It's the smallest part. And that is that I'm not seeking to, quote, lead anything. There are far better people than I who, in the event that there were some kind of a major event, a problem, and or just in preparation to do that preparing and to move forward. And I'm open to people saying, yeah, I agree with you. I'll take some of that, or so-and-so should take some of that. But I am here to spur us all in this process to phase 2. The first phase was, hey, look, wake up. We know what's going on. We know who's doing it in some fashion, at least conceptually. We know that it's been going on for a very long time, and we're ready to step up before we lose control entirely. We need to unite. We need to support the process. We need to support the people who have provided us with the information to the process. We need to have our own reaction and our own solution, and we need to make sure that whoever it is that wants to produce a dark solution for us will know damn good and well that they will have their hands full with us, because we will not accept their solution, and we will not succumb to their problem. So about me, the $2 worth of me, call me Webster. I'm the seething frog. I call myself the seething frog, or this channel a seething frog, for two reasons. One is we are seething because we are sitting there stewing in the pot and things are getting hotter, and the classic is the frog stews until the frog is cooked. The second one is a seething frog is an angry frog, is a frog ready to hop the pot and do something about it, to get out of the problem and do something about it. And finally, while this is only a minor concern to anybody but me, I'm a happy, healthy person. I do not do drugs. I do not have medications. I do not have problems with my own physicality. I do not have alcohol. I do not smoke. I am not depressed. I am not suicidal. I drive carefully, and I do not, and I eat in a healthy fashion. So if something happens to happen to me, I will tell you, as part of this process that I am seeking to entertain, someone else will know that it was an untoward event. And so I'm putting the folks on notice that if you claim for me an untoward event, be it known that you will have told the folks that we are flying over the problem, that we are close to the target. And with that, I will close. So I will ask you, please, reclaim our country. And if you see this as a good idea, hey, let's do it. Or something else like it. Let's move on to page 2. Let's get this job done. Thank you very much for watching the video. I look forward to your responses. I look forward to your positive punch the thumbs up. I welcome you to subscribe if you like, to push the little bell. I will have much more, and an awful lot of what I have to say has to do with how this is formed, how this has come about, tying the things together for hundreds of years and perhaps thousands of years to see what it is that we have been sold as a bill of goods. Thank you very much.